Before Christian McCaffrey's stellar career at Stanford, there was a different white guy who tore it up for the Cardinal. That man was Toby Gerhart. He lost the Heisman Trophy by 28 points to Mark Ingram, and it was the closest finish in Heisman Trophy history. This is the second time a Stanford running back has finished second to an Alabama running back, and they always seem to have good running backs, as Bryce Love was a star as well. A lot of people forget about Toby Gerhart because his NFL career wasn't anything special, but he was a college football superstar at Stanford and an iconic dude. Today we'll talk about the rise of Toby Gerhart, his time at Stanford, and what eventually happened to him in his career. But first, be sure to like the video if you enjoy my content, subscribe if you love college football, suggest another player or topic I should do next, and be sure to stay until the end. Now let's get started and talk about what happened to Toby Gerhart.
I've been having hood dreams, ball player, rap star, Billy been taken, BMW, I ain't got no black Harley dog face. Two twin Glocks and make them shake it like a salt shake. Ain't make it to the league, but I'm still ballin', I was born for this. Never thought I'd see the day when I can make it, should I go legit?
Let's first go back in time and talk about how he became a football star to begin with. Toby was born in Norco, California, and he was the oldest in a family of 6. His father, Todd, played running back at Cal State Fullerton, and he'd eventually go on to sign practice squad contracts in both the USFL and the NFL. He'd also go on to coach all of his sons at Norco High School, and he was a great coach. The entire family were athletes, as Toby's 3 sisters would all play college softball, while Toby and his brothers would all play college football. Toby's brother Garth played center at Arizona State, and after going undrafted, he bounced around practice squads for 5 years. His older brother Cotlin committed to Arizona State as a 3-star quarterback, and after he did not see any playing time, he would transfer over to the Mountain West to New Mexico and have 2 disappointing seasons when he was there. Toby would finish his high school career with a then California State rushing record of 9,662 yards. He'd also finish his senior season winning the D5 Southern California State Championship, and that was a pretty big deal, and he was a legend in the area. He'd also be named the California's Gatorade Player of the Year and California's Mr. Football. So this kid was legit, and I mean, you'd assume he was probably a big-time recruit, right? Despite all the accolades, he was heavily under-recruited coming out of high school. 24/7 Sports listed him as a 3-star fullback and the 374th overall recruit in the nation. He received 8 offers with notable teams such as UCLA and a notable SEC offer in Ole Miss. This was at the time right before Jim Harbaugh would arrive at Stanford, and it was one of the lowest points in the Cardinals' football history. They had a Heisman winner before, but they had been struggling the last few years to even be competitive. He ended up committing to Stanford, though, and he was the highest rated recruit in Stanford's class, and he was in the same class as a fellow 3-star wide receiver by the name of Richard Sherman. I'm guessing you probably know who he is. Toby would get good playing time as a true freshman, as he'd rush for 375 yards and also catch 124 yards worth of passes. He played in 12 games in their awful final season under Walter Harris, where they only won 1 game. In Toby's sophomore season, they go out and hire former Michigan quarterback Jim Harbaugh, and he would be hired as the next head coach of Stanford. He would instantly turn the team around, taking them from 1-11 to 4-8, which doesn't sound that good, but when you're that bad of a program and you're more competitive, it looks really good. A large part of Jim's first-year success was improving the running game. He brought their yards per carry up from 2.1 to 4.7, and a lot of teams, if they can build through the trenches, can end up seeing better results. The 2007 season was one of the craziest years in college football history, and one of the big games from that was Stanford versus USC. USC was ranked, and they were 41-point favorites at home against a bad Stanford team. To make matters worse, Stanford would be playing with their backup quarterback, so they were a 41-point underdog, and no one even thought they could win this. They converted a miracle 4th down to Richard Sherman, and then a miracle 4th down play to win in the end zone, and it was one of the biggest upsets in college football history. Unfortunately, Toby would miss that entire season though, as he'd only play in 1 game before he would have a season-ending knee injury. In his 1 game he appeared in, he ran for 140 yards and a touchdown, and he showed a lot of flash and promise for the future, and I bet it was very disappointing that he was ruled out. 2008 would see a slight team success going up to 5-7, but the real story of that year was Toby coming back from his injury and breaking out into a young star. He ran for over 1,000 yards as he totaled 1,136 rushing yards, and that would have him 5th best in the Pac-12, and his 15 rushing touchdowns had him tied for 2nd in the conference with Jahavid Best. In 2009, Toby would return for his senior year, where it was expected for him to be the feature running back. I mean, they probably thought he was going to be good, but the level that he played at was unreal. He also played baseball for Stanford and was taking 21 credits at the time too. He was drafted in the MLB, but he returned to play football. This dude was just a beast in both the classroom and on the field, and there was nothing that he couldn't do. In 2009, Stanford would get a little better as they saw 4-star recruit quarterback Andrew Luck enter the program. Toby and Andrew would become really good friends, and Andrew says that Toby helped him in his development as a freshman. Luck said, quote, "Toby's too nice to haze anybody. He was my bigger brother as a freshman. We had lunch every Thursday." Aside from entering a future #1 overall pick in 2009, Toby would have one of the best seasons a college football running back has ever had to this day. He'd rush for 1,871 yards and would set the Pac-12 record for most rushing touchdowns in a season with 27. He'd be a unanimous All-American, a first-team All-Pac-12 selection, the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year, the recipient of the Archie Griffin Award, the Brown Award, and the Doak Walker Award for the best running back. So you'd assume that with those statistics and the team's success and all those awards that he won, that he probably took home the Heisman, right? Well, he missed out on the greatest one, as Mark Ingram would get that. Mark Ingram would finish 28 points ahead of him and got 5 more first-place votes, and that made it the slimmest margin in the award's history. Mark is the only running back to win the Heisman and not the Doak Walker Award in college football history, and there's a debate on who should have won it. Despite the controversial Heisman Award, Toby had a phenomenal year and would leave Stanford with multiple records and a chance to pursue his dream of playing in the NFL. Due to his knee injury in 2007, he had one more eligible year, but he chose to enter the NFL draft. Toby would be the 5th running back selected in the 2010 draft, going in the 2nd round to the Minnesota Vikings. Toby would enter the 2010 season as Adrian Peterson's backup, and we actually get pretty decent playing time for a guy backing up a Hall of Fame guy like Peterson. His rookie year, he would get 81 carries and he'd have 322 yards. In his second year, he would improve to 531 yards, but unfortunately that would be his best year. After 2 more below-average years at Minnesota, they chose not to re-sign him and he was a free agent. In 2014, he signed a 3-year, $10.5 million contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he moved south for a new chance. He'd only play in 2 seasons with Jacksonville, though, after he was cut due to poor performance and injuries. Toby played football his whole life, and yet it seems he only really had a 3 to 4 year stretch in his NFL career. As of 2020, Toby went back to get his MBA at Stanford, and he's just a really smart dude, and I bet he is killing it in whatever he is doing. It's hard to say he was a bust or didn't live up to the hype, because he hardly had any hype until he was standing on the Heisman Award stage. He was never supposed to be a superstar at Stanford, as he was brought in to be a fullback, but he ended up tearing it up and proved a lot of people wrong. So it's not like he was seen as some prodigy or some big-time recruit or some guy who was supposed to translate to the next level. He was just a tough running back who worked hard and made the most of what he got. He was a 3-star recruit who won multiple awards, was a Heisman finalist, will go down in Stanford football history, and even made it to the NFL, which is more than what 99% of football players can ever say. But why did he not win the Heisman, and why didn't he succeed in the NFL? Well, Toby was a great player, obviously, but as we know, the Heisman is not based on purely stats, or it would be really easy to pick every year. It is biased and it favors the bigger name players and the bigger name schools and guys who polarize the fan bases and the college sports writers and just the televisions. For example, D'Angelo Williams of Memphis had better stats in 2005, but Reggie Bush was much more polarizing, played for a premier brand of USC football, and everyone was lining up to watch him. So that's why he won the award, and it's more so about a swag factor. Johnny Manziel was the same way. He wasn't necessarily the best quarterback in the country, but he was by far the most polarizing, the most exciting, and had the biggest impact on the sport. Toby Gerhart still got really close, as it was the slimmest margin in Heisman Trophy history to that point, but his season was historical nonetheless. In terms of the NFL, when he got to Minnesota, he was put in a bad situation because there was no way that he was actually going to play a lot of meaningful reps with Adrian Peterson there unless Peterson would get hurt, and Gerhart was just never the kind of guy who was going to blossom into an NFL superstar. He did go to Jacksonville, but they were a poorly run franchise who struggled to do anything good on the field at the time, and he just didn't have the athletic ability to be that good. You can usually tell when an athlete overachieves, and that kind of is what Toby Gerhart is. He worked hard, he ran hard, and he was a smart guy, and he really hit his ceiling in college. He wasn't as quick or as strong or just didn't have that it factor, but nonetheless he was a great player, and I'm glad he went back to get his degree. I didn't get to watch a whole lot of Toby Gerhart back in the day because I did not watch a lot of college football, but I know a lot of you guys grew up watching him, and this is a video that has been requested, so I'm glad I got to bring this to you guys today and research Toby Gerhart's story. Let me know why you think Toby Gerhart didn't make it in the NFL, and another player from the 2000s decade I should take a look at next. Before you go, be sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed my content, subscribe if you love college football, and check out all my other college football videos and all my other What Happened To videos. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.